Long ago, when explorers sailed west from Europe in their wooden ships, they sought a northwest passage to the Orient. What they found was a new world, a land that was vast, rugged, and empty. But even such a discovery did not satisfy these daring men. Searching for the route to Asia, some English explorers sailed west through ice-choked straits toward the regions of Canada, now known as the Northwest Territories. They made many voyages into this country, but they never found the Northwest Passage. Instead, they discovered northern Canada and the waterways which bear their names: Frobisher, Baffin, Davis, Hudson, and others. As time passed, some of the explorers built trading posts. In 1670, they formed a company called Gentlemen Adventurers Trading into Hudson Bay. This was the beginning of the Hudson's Bay Company of Canada, which today carries on a vigorous trade with the Eskimos and Indians living in the north. These primitive Eskimo people lived together in small tribes. They move freely from one hunting ground to another as they follow the game and the fish upon which they live. In winter, when the cold, dark days settle over the north, furs are at their best. The white trappers, adopting the way of the Eskimo, travel by dog team to visit their trap lines. Seeking the skins of the white fox and the beaver, trappers and traders went far into the country and set up new trading posts inland. So, exploration and the fur trade together opened up the Northwest Territories. But mountains cut off this great central territory from the Pacific coast. These mountain ranges form an almost unbroken chain along the whole west coast of North America. In 1848, prospectors found gold in the mountains, first in California, later in the Caribou. And still later, searching for gold, they wandered far to the north into the ranges of the Yukon. They panned sand and gravel from the riverbeds and found pockets of placer gold in the Klondike. In 1898, the magic of gold brought thousands of men into the Yukon to build their gold rush towns on lonely, rugged wastes. Winter overtook them as they filed through ice-choked Chilkoot Pass. Many had not enough clothing. Hundreds died of exposure in the deadly cold of the mountains. But with the fever of gold in their veins, others pressed steadily forward. Winter passed into summer, and still they came. In frail boats and rafts, they dared the rapids of the Lewis River. Many were drowned, but this was the only way into the rich placer country. When they had stripped the quick gold from the riverbeds, most of the prospectors moved out of the country, but a few remained to dig deeper into the hillsides and riverbeds of the Yukon. Some formed companies and used hydraulic power to remove the free gold. Forced through a giant hose with terrific pressure, the water eats into the sides of the gully, gouging out sand, gravel, and gold together. This debris then passes through a sluice which catches the gold as it falls from the current. Today, hydraulic mines still operate on many early gold rush sites of the Yukon. But there are other riches to be found in northern Canada, east of the Klondike, lying embedded in the dreary rocks and tundra of the Great Canadian Shield. Around 1920, bush planes began to fly over this lonely country. Pictures were taken of the Mackenzie district from the air. Geologists followed. They studied the strata of this northern land, for the story of the formation of the earth is told in the dip and strike of the rock outcrops, and samples chipped from these stony surfaces help to tell what lies beneath. In this way, geologists surveyed and studied thousands of square miles. From their work, we have obtained a true picture of this vast land. Now we know the Canadian North is not only a great fur country, but contains gold, radium, oil, mercury, tungsten, and many other minerals. Today, prospectors ranging over the north can use geological maps which point out where the minerals are likely to be found. In 1930, prospector Gilbert Labine discovered pitchblende and silver ore on the rocky shore of Great Bear Lake. He staked his claim. Today, El Dorado is located here, the first mining camp to be built by these new pioneers in the far north. For the discovery of the world's richest radium mine just 30 miles south of the Arctic Circle again brought adventuring men into this country. Out of these bare rocks, they mine pitchblende ore containing radium so rare it is valued at $700,000 an ounce. These sacks of ore had to be shipped outside on a 1,200-mile journey to the railway. For the first time, new barges and tugboats, especially designed, plied the northern lakes and rivers during the months of the summer. In 1932, the oil wells at Fort Norman on the Mackenzie River, closed since 1925, were opened up again. Down the river came new equipment to refine the oil for gasoline. New tanks were built to store the gas and oil, fuel for boats and aircraft and mine machinery in the north. The location for a discovery well was laid by Dr. Ted Link, but Alexander Mackenzie back in 1789 first noted this black oil oozing from the ground. In 1936, on the north arm of Great Slave Lake, veins of gold-bearing quartz were discovered. In 2 years, the town of Yellowknife, with more than 1,000 people, had spread itself over these rocky islands. A town proud of its school, theater, newspaper, and public buildings. Canadian industry is moving to the new mineral regions down the Mackenzie River Basin, and aircraft passing swiftly over the rocky wilderness have made this quick development possible. In many scattered places across the north of Canada, new mines are being developed. On the shore of Pinchy Lake in northern British Columbia are the mercury mines. Rolling out of the hillside come cars piled high with the red mercury ore called cinnabar. No longer is it necessary to import mercury from faraway Italy or Spain. At the processing plant, the ore is roasted. The mercury comes off in the form of vapor and condenses. Then the ore is raked across a drying table, and the liquid metal runs away clear, silvery, and free. Quicksilver, we commonly call it, the only metal that is fluid at ordinary temperatures. Along the shores of the Athabasca River in northern Alberta are the famous black tar sands. These sandbanks along the river are often so full of petroleum that it oozes out onto the surface. The oil and sand are so mixed that no easy, economical way has yet been found to separate them. But here lies a reserve which someday may yield great quantities of oil. Around these new mining areas will grow the settlements of the future. Northern Canada will be able to supply many of their needs, for here, ready for use, are the farm areas, the fisheries, the forests, and the rivers with their promise of hydroelectric power. Already, homesteaders have peopled the Peace River Valley in northern Alberta and British Columbia. After the First World War, they came into this country, the farthest north of Canada's farming areas. In time, others will follow them to cultivate the fertile land still farther north, where longer hours of sunlight in the summer make up for the shorter growing season. When the pioneers came into this Valley of the Peace, they followed a wagon road. Now the Alaska Highway passes their grain fields. And overhead, air routes link them closely to the busy centers in the south and the growing settlements further north. In time, pulp and paper mills will be built in forested areas along the swift rivers. Rivers that will drive logs to the mills and provide electric power for the machines. In the coastal waters of the Northwest, off British Columbia and Alaska, are the fisheries, where millions of salmon, halibut, and herring are caught each year. In the northern lakes and rivers, there is a great reserve of commercial and game fish. Someday, these rivers will echo with the shouts of sportsmen, but today, their stillness is broken only by the splash of salmon breaking water, or the whir of ducks as they rise startled from lonely waters. Although plains have passed over the barriers of mountains and distance, and industry is venturing into the north, this is still a land of challenge, a land for pioneers. For wealth still lies untouched in northern Canada, where lakes and rivers and rolling tundra stretch far northward to the very coast of the Arctic Sea. made many voyages into this country, but they never found the Northwest Passage. Instead, they discovered northern Canada and the waterways which bear their names: Frobisher, Baffin, Davis, Hudson, and others. As time passed, some of the explorers built trading posts. Long ago, when explorers sailed west from Europe in their wooden ships, they sought a northwest passage to the Orient. What they found was a new world, a land that was vast, rugged, and empty. In 1670, they formed a company called Gentlemen Adventurers Trading into Hudson Bay. This was the beginning of the Hudson's Bay Company of Canada, which today carries on a vigorous trade with the Eskimos and Indians living in the north. These primitive Eskimo people lived together in small tribes, but even such a discovery did not satisfy these daring men. Searching for the route to Asia, some English explorers sailed west through ice-choked straits toward the regions of Canada now known as the Northwest Territories.